Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday night edition of the Buddy Martin Show. It's different because we're in a different place. Glad to be with you tonight. We're in Ocala, God's country, and at our good friend Carl Ponder's home. He's granted us the use of this place. What a fabulous internet they got it. Man, we only have that in the Panhandle. So that'll be working good tonight. Hope you'll join us. We got lots of news to talk about, including some new things on the program. It's Peek Wilbur time. Allie hasn't been in a couple of weeks. She'll be joining us tonight when we get her take on, football and the basketball. Basketball is just eating everybody alive. More and more stories on that continually. So we'll be talking to Allie about that, about, of course, football naturally. We've got a word from Steve Spurrier. We talked to him earlier today about his halls of fame. Multiple. He can't count them all. He's got so many. Latest one coming out lately. The quarterback Hall of Fame. Also, Scott Carter will be joining us, tell us on things like, gosh, baseball, softball, a lot of news, a lot of things going on. We'll catch you up there. And then, of course, Franz Beard, who's on the way to the NCAAs with our photographer, Chris Spears. They'll be covering for us. It's going to be exciting for them. They'll be leaving tomorrow. Franz will join us for one last word on what in the world is going on with this basketball team. And we have a sort of a heated discussion this morning on another show about why were they so late coming around to give them Florida's just due. Speaking of just due, another All-American award for Florida's star player. We'll tell you about it. He now is eligible for a brick, is he? Walter Clayton Jr. Tell you about that right now. It's time for us to go to the program and bring in one of our favorite people, actually not a guy, Peek Wilbur, who's very popular on the show. She's been out last couple of weeks, and we've been missing her. We'll be glad to get her back on and catch up. She does a podcast, which I know you're all familiar with, Peek at the Gators, and she'll tell us about what she's heard. Football, she's got good sources, and she has many things to say, so can't wait for that. Stand by. It's time for the Buddy Martin Show, and Peek Wilbur's next.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking, but be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Hey, it's March Madness time, and boy, this is one of our favorite times of the year. I'm not a great brackets person. I filled mine out because I want to get involved in the thing we're doing with Ernie.com. You have to register, and it takes a minute to get in it, but you got some opportunities to win some money, be a part of the winning team. You designate your school, and then you pick against other schools. Like right now, we have a rivalry going with Auburn. So go to Ernie.com and check it out. Meanwhile, Peek Wilbur, who's been out and about and around, and it's a busy spring right now. By the way, if I'm not talking well, it's because I spent 3.5 hours in a dentist chair today. And everything here has been drilled down. But I must say, it was one of the best experiences I've had in a dental office. Joey Sorrentino, former defensive back for a special teams player for the Gators, Urban Meyer. Dr. Sorrentino at Marion Dental took me in. And can I say I probably had 6 or 7 shots. I felt one of them. No, hardly any pain. That's unusual, and it's great. Thank you, Dr. Sorrentino. I know you don't like to go to the dentist. I don't either. But if you got to go one, Allie, go to one that doesn't hurt you, right?
Well, and I love Joey Sorrentino. I have known him since college. He played with Eric and he played with my brother. He was kind of in between them in age, and he is such a good guy. So that's so awesome.
he's doing really well. He's got this place and a place on Lady Lake, and he's just loving life. He loves his family. And he's got a boy and a girl, and he's just a happy guy. And I tried to go to another dentist or two, and I just didn't like the deal, didn't like the way they treat me. That was way out of my price range. And Joey sat down with me and said, we can do this. And he told me how to do it. And he comes in on his lunch hour sometime to do it. He's fantastic. So thank you, Joey Sorrentino.
I love that. Well, next time you see him, tell him the Wilburs said hi.
Well, because he said, what time is your show? Because he didn't watch it. He's usually in bed by now. And I'll tell him next time, stay up on Wednesday nights and watch.
There you
go. Wilburs. You could almost be the traveling Wilburs, like the traveling Wilbur. You know what I mean?
We are all over the place lately.
All right, yeah. So what's going on with you, lady?
Oh my goodness. It's spring break this week for my children. It is the gymnastics season is kind of coming to an end. States are in 2 weeks. So we're just like all in on gymnastics practices, all in on stuff for school. This week is nice with the spring break. It kind of means I'm driving a little bit less because they're not going to school. We're still going to practice, but it's slightly less chaotic than normal. Have a couple different events that I've been planning for my school. So it's just been, the normal chaos in this house.
Are they on a travel team? They are, aren't they?
They are. So they, gymnastics basically is levels 1 through 10. And Hadley and Hayden are my older twins. They're 10 years old, and one of them's level 6, one of them's level 5. Level 6 is considered optionals, is what it's called. And it's pretty competitive. The girls that go to college make it through level 10. Hadley, if she stays on this track, will actually have 5 years at level 10, which is pretty crazy. Like if she were to keep doing it, and Hayden would have 4. And they say usually to be good enough to compete in college, you need to compete level 10 at least 2 years. So Hadley will have been there for 5 years by the time she's done. So, they're pretty advanced for their age at their sport, and they're just loving life right now.
People have no idea of the involvement that parents have, and people who play soccer and swim and all that stuff up at 5 o'clock in the morning traveling. You got to go out of town. Sometimes trips cost $800-900 just to get them there. Feed them all of them. It's expensive, crazy.
It is. Yeah. We've been to Atlanta this year. We've been to Savannah. We've been all over the state. They have to practice per the gymnastics body that governs their sport at least 15 hours a week. So they're in the gym Monday through Friday for 3 hours, which at 10 honestly is a ton. But gymnastics is not a sport you can do halfway. You essentially either do it recreationally or competitively. There is no really in between then. So right now we're all in on that. They also play soccer. We try and make sure they do lots of different sports. I don't want to pigeonhole them. I want them to try all the things that they want to try, and then later they can figure out what their passion is, Yeah. But they're pretty all in on gymnastics right now.
All right, let's talk a little football for a change before we switch over to basketball, the subject du jour with everybody. Let's talk about the good reports we're hearing. Everybody's excited about these wide receivers, really excited about them. I talked to Kurt Spurrier today. I got a little tape I'm going to play later on. And they asked him about, how much that would affect DJ Lagway. He said it shouldn't affect him that much. He said there's not a major injury. He should be fine, whatever. So it's going really well with all the talk, at least. I keep hearing all these people talk about glowing reports of players. But, by the same token, they can't go into the idea they're going to be the big dogs because they won their last 4 games like that.
Sure.
But they do have momentum. What have you been hearing? Sometimes in the off season, you pick up more drum beats.
Yeah. I have heard some fantastic things about our linebacker room. I think that is a room that Florida expects to really kind of excel at. It is an embarrassment of riches over there. I heard the same stuff about DJ Lagway. I talked to a couple people really close to him, and they essentially said, we're just being cautious here. There's, we want to make sure that he doesn't aggravate anything from overuse, and it's nothing to be concerned about at all. More like somebody related it to like tendonitis, something like along that lines, not something that needs surgery, not something that is going to affect the fall. I think that there's just being cautious, which, there's a lot riding on him having a successful season. So I think it's incredibly smart to kind of have kid gloves when dealing with him in the spring. It doesn't fully matter, right? It really honestly is more important to develop his backups. Florida has had some bad luck the last couple of years with injuries to quarterbacks. Why not make sure the guys behind him are ready? I don't think that it's a bad thing at all. And I don't think it's anything fans need to worry about. I agree with you on the wide receiver room. I think I've heard some great things about Dallas Wilson, great things about Vernell Brown III. Trey Wilson's coming back from his
Braves, yeah.
From his surgery, his hip surgery. Like that is and that I stand for Billy Gonzalez. I just think that he is such an exceptional coach, and that room will be ready to go. But it is such a balance. Like, we hear all these positive things, and I try to be level-headed because I do know that, all the things that are coming out of practice are going to be positive. That kind of happens every single year. But I find myself getting excited because there's just an embarrassment of riches in so many of these position groups that it's hard to picture how Florida won't be taking that step next year. I feel like it's going to be hard for them not to. They're just so talented.
Yeah, Franz Beard is going to join us momentarily. He's early tonight. He's supposed to be on a little later, but he's there. I'll see him, and I'll get to him in a minute. We'll talk a little hoop and talk about the wonderful news today that Walter now is a consensus All-American. Franz had a good piece. Does he get a brick now? And basketball players don't get bricks, and even Coach brought it up. But maybe he's worth. They should start building bricks over there.
Heck yeah.
But I asked this question last night, and I ask it again: of the players whose contributions have been really significant, who are not expected to be as good as they are, or contribute as much, because they have 10 people now, they can play, and some of them have just been key. Anglo, obviously. Chimino is one of my favorites. A guy I had no idea he was that good. There's so much talent on his team. Which player would you say is not the frontline people, we know the starters, the guards, but people who came out of nowhere and sort of made a role for themselves? Who impressed you the most?
Well, honestly, there's so many guards that it's hard to rule out and say, no guards, because we have so many that have been good. But I think Urban has stepped up. I mean, he's a guard, but I'll say it because he's not in the starting five. I feel like he has been a good support player. So I heard a really interesting story about Elijah Martin today, which I found so interesting. And essentially it was that originally Florida was recruiting his teammate. I believe his last name is Long. He does not play for Florida, but anyway, was recruiting him. And he eventually, Todd Golden decided to sign Martin instead. And Martin was kind of the lesser known transfer portal guy. And apparently he went with him because he felt like he meshed better with the team than his teammate did. He was less of, I don't want to say ball hog, like that's a negative thing, but like he was okay being a number two instead of, the man. And so it worked better. And it just was such an interesting story to me about Todd Golden's recruiting savvy and how important things like meshing well in your lineup are for the transfer portal, because you don't have a whole lot of time to work on the adaptation, right? It either works or it doesn't work with a transfer portal player. And I think Martin is such a good example of somebody that was able to come in, contribute immediately. They found a role for him that worked, right? That effortlessly worked. And I think that's such a nod to Todd Golden and the strategic nature that he builds Florida's roster with. He's not one of those guys that is like, all right, well, let me just sign all the 5 stars I can. Let me just get, all the top names, and then we'll make sure that their personalities fit together later.
Place and design for it.
Yeah. And I think that is part of the success that we're seeing. He is just so strategic about roster building. And I don't know that I think that's kind of rare in college basketball. And it's interesting to see too, we're looking at these teams a little bit differently than we did in the past. Florida has always been one that has guys that lasted, through through their junior or their senior season. We've been more team oriented than like a Kentucky or a Duke when it's, a roster full of freshmen and then they're starting all over the next year. But I almost think the transfer portal has helped that a little bit, right? These guys have longer college careers because they're trying to find their niche and they can make money in college now. So it's interesting, but kudos to Todd Golden because we are here because of his roster building.
Yeah, for sure. I want to get to France just a second and follow the basketball thing up, and I'm assuming you got your picks, and we'll talk about that. If you got any favorite ones, I'm not good at this. We'll pick out a couple. I'm sure France has got a couple squared away. But first, let me tell folks out there we're doing some new pricing and new marketing on this show. In the next couple of weeks, you'll be hearing from me and others about new packages that are available. Some of them geographically in different locations, segments from different places. And we're going a little more global. We're going to be expansive in it. We're very excited about it. The pricing will be better for smaller business. And so get in touch with me. DM me. I'll let you know. Since I'm putting it together today with help of some people like Freddie Weeby. So the pricing with the Buddy Martin Show and what we're doing. Meanwhile, Brendan Martin is expanding SEC sidelines and all they're doing there. Let me tell you about Titan MRI and Imaging. They're now called Titan MRI and Imaging. The acquired high-field MRI, Joe Colorillo, started a high-field MRI in 1997. Now he's back. Titan MRI and Imaging now has 3 locations to serve you, 2 of them in Gainesville. Check them out. Coming to Ocala soon. Also in Lake City, you can reach them up there as well. Same great customer service. They accept insurance now, and through their convenient self-pay options, you can find ways to pay. They're easier. Titan MRI and Imaging offers MRIs, CAT scans, X-rays, and ultrasounds. Easy scheduling with lots of options, including evenings if you need them. Large MRI machines for patients' comfort. Titan MRI and Imaging. Check them out. Coming to your neighborhood soon. All right, let's go up here and talk to this guy. He's getting his bags packed. I can see him in the background packing them right now. Headed out tomorrow. Some guys get all the good gigs. He's going, there he is. He's headed out. He's going to North Carolina and points unknown. Hey, Franz, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I got a reservation for the Angus Barn to eat Thursday night, so life is good.
Well, we're
got basketball. What's that?
I said we were really excited about that.
Oh, when you can combine basketball in the Angus Barn and then get over to Rocky Mount maybe Saturday and get a little bit of Buck Melton's Eastern North Carolina barbecue. Man, that's good. That's good stuff, buddy.
You're traveling with Chris Spears. I told him, be careful about going through Louisiana with Franz. He'll take you to the deepest parts of Louisiana, darkest, and all kinds of Cajun food. But let's talk.
But I always get us back to where we're supposed to be.
Well, it's sometimes 50-50 depending on who's driving. All right, so Franz, Allie and I are just going to talk about the basketball team. The contributors, I know you've discussed this, 100 different people, whatever. I do think it's important to talk about Walter Clayton Jr.'s All-American, make him consensus now. You had a column today about why don't they get a brick over there in the O-Dome, and talk about that.
Well, we do so much for football players, and goodness, football is the cash cow. That pays the freight for everything else. Basketball holds its own, but football pays for everything, and it's the sport that gets 90,000 people to come spend a Saturday afternoon. Basketball doesn't get nearly as many people, but they have a lot of home games, and they do quite well. But it's time, if we're going to be a big-time basketball school, then start treating our players like big-time basketball players. I'm friends with John Calipari, and when I went up to Kentucky, I got to see the Cat's Lodge, which is, if there's such a thing as a 5-star hotel, this is a 12-star hotel. I mean, it's 8-foot beds for their basketball players. All of them with Tempur-Pedic mattresses, all of them with zero gravity chairs. I mean, it's like, nothing's too good for their basketball players. Now, I'm not saying Florida needs to spend as lavishly as Kentucky does, but these other schools are starting to spend more money than Florida. And it's time for Florida to catch up. I mean, you look at what they did at Ole Miss. Ole Miss took down the Tad Pad, which was the old Coliseum, which wasn't a bad place to play, but they have the new place to play there. And the Pavilion, they got the same people who built the one at Auburn to build theirs. For what we put lipstick on our pig called the O-Dome, they got a brand new arena there at Ole Miss. We could have taken that O-Dome, put a tunnel underneath it into Ben Hill Griffin Stadium and connected the two, and could have renovated it for not a whole lot of money and turned that into a fabulous indoor practice facility.
Well, I think they need to spend their money on people and not brick and mortar right now. And I just read today, of course, I don't know if it was accurate or not, but someone in Gator put on their alley that Florida's NIL deals in basketball are right up there with a lot of people. Have you heard that, Allie?
That's been reported today several places, that essentially Florida is at the top of NIL, or will be very competitive with the top, but
competitive.
They should be, right? They should be. We have the ability to, we have the desire to have a winning program. You should. And, while I understand the concern about the brick and mortar facilities, and I too wish we had, it felt like we were always kind of behind the times and stuff, playing catch up instead of setting the trends, leading the way. We were always, 10 years behind to just catch up to then be lapped again. But I do think in this NIL era, kids would play in a court out back with a fence around it if the number was right. They seem far less concerned these days about the indoor waterfalls and things like that, and much more concerned with just the bottom line number.
Yeah.
Well, I agree somewhat with that. There are some who would. I mean, kids do go to Georgia. I mean, and Stegman is, Stegman's the biggest dump in the world. It's been there. It's the second oldest arena in the SEC now. I remember, buddy, can you remember when that was a palace? I mean, I remember when Stegman first came along, and it was absolutely a palace. But they're spending money on NIL, which is good because they need to. And Allie, you hit the nail on the head a little bit ago. Todd Golden's real secret has been constructing a team. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you what, tell me if I'm wrong here, guys, but isn't there a parallel between, here's Billy Napier, who has constructed a team his way, got guys who have bought into the system who are now in their third and fourth year. And here's Todd Golden, Will Richard, third year. Kondo and Hawk, second year. Walter Clayton, second year. He's built the team, and Denzel Aberdeen, third year guy. Mm-hmm. But I see parallels in these guys building a roster the way they need to compete very heavily. And it's very, very recruit centric and less transfer portal centric.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, to Napier's credit here, it's got to be harder to manage 105 personalities and build a roster that size than it is, a roster of 20 or whatever the basketball, number is, 25, whatever it is. And so, obviously Napier's going into year 4 hasn't had quite the success as Golden has, but I do think that that's got to be more difficult because just by sheer numbers. But it's interesting in this college basketball and college football world that we're in right now, because I think that the majority are building teams instead of programs, if that makes sense. And I think that these two coaches are building a program, something that is more sustainable than just a one-off team that is successful one year. It is something that is going to be somewhat self-sustaining, which in the long run, if we can be patient for it, is the building with bricks as opposed to building with wood, right? When you build your foundation.
I would agree with that. And I look at what's, for example, next year, yeah, you're losing Elijah, you're losing Walter, you're losing Will Richard. You got C.I.'s kid coming in, and C.I.'s kid is a 5-star stud. You got Alex Lloyd coming in from Fort Lauderdale, Westminster. And I got to tell you what, give him a year and we'll be start to thinking he shoots an awful lot like that Walter guy who was here. You know, I mean, he's one of these guys that can do it. But you look at the fact that he's going to be less reliant on the portal. He's still going to recruit the portal. I mean, he'll go out this year. If he loses Kondo, he'll go into the portal and he'll get him a big guy.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, both of you, Ali Ryu, and I'm told this by somebody who knows, is a legit 7'10.5", not 7'9". Still growing. I don't know if y'all saw when they were cutting down the nets,
and he didn't need a ladder.
Everybody else climbed on the ladder, and he just stood there and reached up and snipped his. I'll give you a little hint from Carlin Hartman. The kid's going to be a player, and anybody knows coaching big men, Carlin Hartman does, and that's another secret to Todd's success, buddy. He's got terrific assistant coaches. Carlin Hartman is as good a big man coach as we have had here since Anthony Grant, and Pelfrey, and those guys were both extraordinary. Andrzejczyk is terrific. One of his associate head coaches. Corey McRae, fabulous recruiter. Torian, our guards. Walter would not be where he is today without Torian the last 2 years. Torian is
up with a couple of guys up with a couple of things here. Think of ponder, and I want you to weigh in on it. And we've got Scott Carter in the orange and blue room who will come in behind us. I know, Franz, you have to probably get out of here early because you got tomorrow's your big night. A couple of things. Should we worry about rat poison? You know, I mean, now that Walter Clayton Jr. consensus All-American team is flying high, and Todd Golden doesn't duck it. He says, yeah, we can win the national championship. I wonder if that's ever going to become a problem. I don't think this team will necessarily get the big head, but you got to be careful about that, getting too lofty. And I think it's very important that we think about that before we get into it. Because you can get at any time you can get knocked out of a game like this.
Yeah, but you know what he does, buddy? He looks at Walter Clayton Jr. He says, yeah, you made 4 first-team All-America teams. Not all the coaches in the SEC voted for you, though. You were not unanimous. And he goes to Will Richard, and he says, look at the year you had. You were as good a defender on the perimeter as there was in the league. You took over some games and did some stuff that nobody else could do, and nobody wanted you on the team.
Oh, you're right. Very good job of motivating. There's no doubt about that. I agree with you on that.
He can go to these guys and tell them all, like Tommy Hawk.
Well,
why weren't you 6th man of the year? You know,
I want to hear him talk about the fact, and Allie, I want you to think about this. I've written about it, talked about it to a point where I think shame on the people who didn't put Florida up there. And I have a theory about it. Why did it take so long for them to realize what we all knew? This was a top-notch team. Yeah, they had a hiccup like all teams, certainly the Georgia game being one of those. They came back from 26 points and led the game, though, by the way. And they did not, and I hate to say Rodney Dangerfield, they just couldn't get in, and they were just boxing the ears of the Alabama guys. You know, and I have a theory on that, and I've written it and said it, and you can tell me I'm crazy, and I want you to think about it. I get our friend Scott on here. I want him to weigh in on it too. It's possible that the allure of the basketball version of the Iron Bowl caught Alabamans by such shock. They were so enamored with it that they forgot that their teams are getting the crap out of them by Florida. And then you say, well, then how can you say the last 10 games don't count? Give me a break.
That's just
What if I said that about the NBA? Well, Golden State last 10 games didn't count.
That's a pathetic excuse, and you're right, it is pathetic.
Now, hold on, don't give it to me yet. I want you to wait till Scott gets here. I want you all weigh in on this while I tell you folks about our friends at Meldon Law. Let's go get Scott before he goes to sleep. It's past his bedtime. He might drift off if we don't go get him right now, and because he goes to bed when Francis does early. All right, let's see if we can find Scott. There he is in there. I'm coming, Scott. I'm coming. I'm trying to find you, buddy. There he is right there. Good evening to you, Scott. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, guys? How's everybody doing?
Hey,
Good,
Scott.
man. I'm telling them about this, our friends at Meldon Law, and then we're going to all weigh in on the subject of rat poison. If the basketball has any danger of rat poison. By the way, Billy Donovan back in the day, the same thing. We called it poison. Didn't say rat. That was Saban's. And also, whether or not is it just me? Am I just a homer? Why am I the only one who's ticked off about the fact they disrespected Florida right up to the end? So they had to put them as the number one seed. So stand by for a second. I'll tell you about our friends at Meldon Law. By the way, Meldon Law, they don't back down. You can check them out. I've got them working on cases for me. If you have a case somewhere with another attorney and you need some help or advice or a second opinion, call them up. They have locations in Sherview, Ocala, Gainesville, Lake City, Wilson. They are the only official law firm of the University of Florida Injury Law Firm of the Gators. And of course, everybody knows Jeffrey is a big, big Gator. So give them a call, check them out, and it's a pretty good chance you get to see one of the Meldons. When you call Meldon Law, they won't back down. All right. Who wants to go first? Allie, you or Franz on those two questions? One, the rat poison, and two, does it bother you that it took so long to give Florida respect?
Okay, well, let's see. I'll start with the rat poison. I personally am one of those people that would always rather my team be an underdog and painted as an underdog. I do think that you always run the risk of, getting your ego a little inflated. And it's easier to coach an underdog, I think, than it is to control the narrative that, like, hey, guys, you might not be that great. You still got to continue to prove it. You still got to go out there and win the games. Like, don't listen to what they have to say. So, I'd prefer I hated when I saw that game day, everybody picked Florida to win the national championship. Shoot, stop doing that. We don't want to hear that. Pick against Florida, please. Let's give them some bulletin board material. But I do think Golden does a pretty good job of keeping his team focused. I think you can just look at the things that happened earlier this year and his own personal Title IX things. And I mean, that had to be something that players were thinking about or was being talked about. And they did such a great job not focusing on it and just focusing on the task at hand and kind of blocking out the noise. I would assume they'll take a similar path right now. And then the other question, do I feel like Florida was disrespected, didn't get the respect they needed earlier? I think with basketball, it all shakes out in the end, right? And so it's different than needing to be at a certain ranking in the polls to make the playoffs or, whatever. Florida was going to have an opportunity to prove it on the court. I actually have a bigger issue with the concept of keeping Auburn as the number one overall after, the last 2 weeks that they had than I do about where they put Florida. I think Florida should have at least been the third number one seed. I see an argument for them to be the second number one seed. I think it is kind of silly that they're the fourth. They are, common opponents for Houston. Florida has a better record. Their strength of schedule was better. They, I think Houston's a great team, but you could definitely argue that Florida should be higher than at least Houston. But I think it's a bigger story to me that Auburn stayed number one overall than where Florida fell.
Okay, so nobody agrees with me on either. Scott, what do you think about those two things?
Well,
and the idea they didn't get their just due.
I'm never surprised that, I kind of thought Alex summed it up there pretty well in terms of basketball. It does kind of shake out at the end. The best team, the one who can put together 6 straight wins, is going to be crowned champion. After the Tennessee win at the O-Dome when they beat them by 30, there was a little slow. I mean, they jumped up there, but there were a couple of polls late in the season where they actually fell a spot. It was kind of head scratching. So I just don't think a lot of the national media really started believing in them until they saw it last weekend. And now they're kind of like the darling going into the tournament. And, it's not a bad place to be, if you ask me. I mean, I just think, as all these polls, Auburn was kind of a favorite from the get-go. And I'm like Allie, I don't really see how they're a number one seed. But they had that ranking all year, and I guess a lot of people just have trouble detaching themselves from the way their perception of Auburn all year. But at this point, buddy, I could care less. I just want to see the games, and I think Florida is in excellent shape. And this team can beat anybody if it plays like it did in Nashville. It will all take care of itself.
You're very nice. I hold grudges. I think it's important to remember that they really were not giving them respect. And the fact that they were so, again, enamored with the Iron Bowl version of basketball, I get it. I mean, I heard shows on our own network where guys were talking in the morning all about Auburn. I was on the show. I finally said, enough Auburn. Who won the tournament? I'm not saying that they should lay it down or to win it, but at least give them equal footing. And France, what was their record against the Big Five, the Big Three? Was it 5-1 in the SEC?
5-1, 4 wins on the road.
Right, and they beat them badly on the road, embarrassed them. I don't know, what were they looking at? I mean, I'm not that good, but like I said, Stevie Wonder could see where that team was going.
Well, here's the thing: is Auburn was there at number one, and everybody thought, okay, they're number one. And you got to remember something: Auburn hasn't played well since Janai Broome got that high ankle sprain. Now he's come back, and he's played pretty darn well, but he hasn't played at the same level he played before the injury. High ankle sprains are weird, which is kind of why I look at Duke University. As they say at Carolina, they sing, "I don't give a damn about Duke University." And Duke's got Cooper Flagg, and they're saying, well, look how well they played against Louisville. Louisville's terrible. Louisville would be 10th place in the SEC at best. And yet they're ranked 11th in the country, and I don't know why, except there's people who are enamored with the ACC. Cooper Flagg is going to be coming back on a sprained ankle. I don't think Duke is that good to begin with, but with him injured, another problem. But Auburn, you look at that. Auburn's number one. They got Janai Broome playing well. Yeah, he had the sprained ankle, but he still played well. And they got 16 quad one wins. And there's Alabama that made the Final Four last year, and everybody seems to be enamored with Nate Oates, and they seem to think that Nate Oates has, magic in his fingertips. Well, guess what, guys? His team can't play a lick of defense, never has. Their defense is to outscore you, to run you in the ground to the point that in the last 15 minutes of the game, you run out of gas and they end up blowing the doors off of you. That's Alabama's defense. Florida runs just as well as Alabama, but Todd has this thing about, well, if you don't want to defend, then you don't want to play for me. What a concept, which is why we're number 10 in the country in defensive efficiency, number 1 in offensive efficiency. But you get people who don't look at that. I mean, you got Dick Vitale making an absolute, I love Dickie. Okay, what he's done for cancer is terrific, but his sell-by date expired 10 years ago. He doesn't, he got out there, made an absolute fool of himself. I mean, he did everything but pull down John Shire's pants at mid-court and kiss his rectum. I mean, that was unbelievable.
That way exactly, but I get what you're talking. A little too graphic.
It was just about that, I mean, my goodness, buddy. I mean, I've heard
I will say that
Walter
he
up.
kept drilling about it. It was on the broadcast. He kept drilling about North Carolina and Duke the whole time. Like, Dick, you're doing a game in the SEC. We don't care about how much you loved Mike Krzyzewski and Duke and North Carolina and all that stuff. Anyway, I understand. I'm glad he's better. He's been a great thing for basketball, but I'm sorry. When I hear he's doing a game, I have a hard time staying with it. That's just me. I'm getting old. Let me just ask you guys this. Some of you got to bail out here. I know with other duties to do things, but as we line it up for football season and basketball season, what is a reasonable amount of teams? You got 14 in the SEC to make their best guess. The 32, the 16, the 8, the 4, and how many do you see? We did it the other night, Franz. You're down there. Lally, give me how many of the SEC teams will have the 14 will be there for the 32?
I'm trying to pull up my bracket that I filled out to see how many.
Take a shot. You know,
let me take a look at this and see what we got here.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, Scott will go ahead because he knows the answer to this already.
He does.
Well, I don't have my bracket either in front of me, but I think it's realistically, if you're saying that, to the round of 32, I mean, half a dozen or more, I think. I mean, I think Alabama, Auburn, Florida. The thing I love about the tournament, buddy, is there's always a surprise. I mean, Kentucky could get hot, it surprises. So yeah, there's I think half a dozen teams you probably could look at. Of course, I didn't mention Tennessee; they're right there. So
let's just do an over/under number we'll all agree on. Okay, for how many? Let's make the over/under number 8.
8. Okay. All right. Well,
so
I'm sure the SEC would take that, having a quarter of the 8 of 32.
But I mean, so who wants to go over? Who wants to go under?
I'll go over. I think it's going to be over 8 to 32, right?
Yes.
Okay. 32. It's going to be over 8.
Franz over/under.
I'll take the 8, but I think 9's possible. Auburn gets there. Texas A&M gets there. Ole Miss will get there. Florida will get there. Missouri will get there. Arkansas won't. Tennessee will. Kentucky will. Georgia won't.
Will count. I just kind of want to know over/under.
Yeah, I'd say a solid 8, 9 possible.
So you're taking over. Is that what you're saying? Over is the number 8.
Okay, let's go over. Whatever.
Okay. All right. So let's go next to 16. Franz went off the air. Let's go to 16, Allie. How many will make it?
4, I'm gonna say.
Well, I'm 7 on the other thing, so I'm under. So 4 in the all right, and Scott, how many?
I'm going to just say 6. I'm going to stick with 6.
Okay, Franz.
Well, let me go through them again. Missouri will and Florida will down in the West. The Aggies will in Arkansas, Auburn will in the South. That's 3. What?
That's 4.
Auburn, Alabama will. That's 4, and Kentucky and Tennessee 5 and 6.
Okay.
So you're already you at. So what's the number there, guys? What's our over/under on that?
All right. Well, I'm apparently over 4, right? I honestly think 4 make the Elite 8 too. So maybe it is more fair to say 6.
Yeah. Okay. And then final 4. This will be the last one. Allie.
I'm gonna say 2 of 4 are SEC.
And who are they and who wins it?
I think Auburn and Florida are the 2.
Mm-hmm.
I have Florida and Duke in my championship game in my bracket, and I have Florida winning. But
all right,
yeah, I think Auburn and Florida.
Scott, what was in your final 4, and how many SEC teams?
If I was, making a bet, I'd have to go with Florida and Auburn as well. I think Florida is going to win this thing. I just really think that this is the team to do it. They passed all the tests so far, so we'll see. But it's going to be tough.
Can't argue that. Franz, give me your Final Four and who wins it. And,
Auburn and Florida are going to get there. The winner of Kentucky and Tennessee will get there, and if Grant Nelson is healthy, Alabama will
four
destroy.
SEC teams. Wow.
Woo!
If Grant Nelson is healthy, Duke dies.
All right.
I love it.
All right.
If that happens, that
We all
would be
picked
a
the same
story.
teams. We all picked the
Dick
chalk.
Vitale will go into apoplexy.
He'll finally retire.
No, we
That's a
won't.
good idea.
I'm just glad he's okay health wise. That's the most important thing because he has been a lot to college basketball. Remember,
Oh, yeah, he's great. He's
an
great.
awful lot of that. Yeah. So
So has Nick Saban, but he rode off into the sunset.
he faded.
I
off-
mean, he's on game day every week, so I don't know that he's
faded in the sunset. Exactly. And by the way,
he's just not calling games.
those commercials are terrific. That he does.
Oh, with the Airbnb.
Airbnb, hilarious,
Yeah.
Yeah,
hilarious.
he's good. They've screwed up the Duck though. The Duck used to be so good, and the Duck is. I mean, with Dawn Staley, give me a break. I mean, nobody watches Dawn Staley to begin with,
Well,
but
that's not true. Garcia is a hot ticket. She's very good.
she's a great
Right.
coach. But she doesn't. She's not the magnet that draws people to.
All right.
They need, women's college basketball needs the next Caitlin Clark badly, just like the WNBA does. The WNBA lost $150 million again. And you got to wonder how long it is that they're going to keep subsidizing at that kind of thing.
Allie mad making these comments, but be careful, Allie.
The thing about it is they've got the marketing tool. Caitlin Clark is the best thing that happened to women's basketball, and they're going to come up with another one next year and a couple more. And this kid at Southern Cal, Juju Watkins, and then Paige Beckers. They're going to have 3 or 4 really great players to market, and they are clueless. They are absolutely clueless. This is almost like the thing they do at baseball, where these guys go running around in the circles in a bat, and then we get to watch them fall on the ground, and everybody gets entertained by that. Give me a break.
Yeah, but Robert or George points out it's not Airbnb, it's the other one.
Oh, VRBO or Verbo or whatever.
Yeah.
No.
Something.
Verbo, exactly. All right, who has to go and who can stay for a minute? Tell me.
I'm going. I got to go. I got to pack.
You're gone, Allie.
I can stay for a couple more minutes. I gotta
Okay.
get my kids to bed in a bit.
All right, good night, Franz.
Good night.
What's your
Good night, boys and girls.
Yeah, I can hang for a couple more.
All right, good. Let's
See you,
do that.
friends.
See you, friends. Good, happy trails. You shovel tomorrow. So that used to be the greatest double in sports writing. I hate to sound like an old timer, but I am. Where you could fly in from the Final Four into Augusta and see the Masters. That was was the best. I mean, it's so good. And one reason when you're living in the cold weather, like in Denver, and you fly then there and you get out of Augusta and see green grass, oh my gosh, it looks so great. So will you watch any of the Masters, guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's about one of the 2 golf tournaments I'll watch all year, that and the U.S. Open. So I'll definitely watch some.
Yeah. There's a funny, by the way, did you see Scotty Scheffler's championship dinner menu?
No, what was on it?
Oh, I'll have to call it up. I had it earlier. I'll find it. But no, it's beautiful. It's so I can find it. Well, you guys talk among yourselves for a second.
Talk amongst yourself.
Well, hopefully it's not a squirrel or something.
No. It's good stuff.
Gross.
Something really good.
Hopefully it's steak and.
What would be yours, Allie, if you were putting it on?
Oh my goodness, I would a surf and turf for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
His is good. It's very good.
I should know this. The Masters, is it weekend after next?
Yeah, it's like the second weekend in April, right?
Right after.
Okay, so we still got a couple weeks. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to Google that now, but I'm pretty sure it's the second weekend in April.
Who's been? Scott, you've been, haven't you?
I've never actually covered a Masters. I've been to Augusta
Really?
National for a women's tournament that had a couple of Gators up there a few years ago.
Well, you're not going this year either. It's the same weekend as the spring game.
Yeah, so I'm out. Yeah, it's one of those things I would like to go once and just but I mean the course is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe what it was really like in person. All those hills and stuff.
We have a neighbor here in Tampa who's a producer for CBS, and she a couple years ago gave us 2 tickets, gave Eric and I 2 tickets, but our 5-year-old kids that are 5 now were like 1, and so like it wasn't realistic for us both to go. So Eric went and took our brother-in-law, but I always tease him, next time that there's 2 Masters tickets, I'm going and you're not.
There aren't many times you get 2 tickets. It's hard to take it this way. Here's the menu. Appetizers, cheeseburger sliders, firecracker shrimp, Papa Chef's meatball and ravioli bites. First course is Texas-style chili, cheddar cheese, jalapenos, and corn chips. Of course, Scotty's from Texas. Main course, choice of wood-fired cowboy ribeye or blackened redfish.
Jeez.
Family-style macaroni and cheese, jalapeno cream corn, sage-glazed Brussels sprouts, chipotle lane roasted sweet potatoes. Dessert, warm chocolate chip skillet cookie.
Okay.
And then finally it says served in honor of Mr. Scotty Scheffler. So that sounds like not too bad.
No, he's got all the bases covered there.
Oh.
He does. He absolutely does.
Yeah, so it's a fun event. I went to, I think, somewhere around 35 of them, and I missed it. I could never negotiate those hills again. You talk about a walk. That's a walk. And it is hilly. I remember we used to go out to Amen Corner on Sunday, and we'd watch the leaders come through because, they say the Masters doesn't start till the back 9 on Sunday. And then we scamper back to the media center because you can't really see the Masters unless you watch on TV. So we scamper back on those hills, and we'd be huffing and puffing and go to the media center and watch the final 4, 5, 6 holes on TV. So great moments there. So, guys, enjoy everything. Enjoy the basketball tournament. Scott, update us real quick on baseball team. Finally got a win. Were they leading supposed to win tonight? Softball finally got a win. Tell us what's going on in the Diamond.
Yeah, I mean, baseball obviously had a bad weekend up at Tennessee, but everybody who's played Tennessee has been bad so far. So they got on the track last night with Jacksonville. They were beating Florida A&M earlier last time I looked. And, of course, they have Georgia coming to town this weekend. So I think the big thing with baseball right now, they've just had some injuries pile up. And obviously the big one was to Pierce Capola. And Sully said after the game last night he's going to start throwing again next week. So that's actually a really good sign. They're still waiting on Cade Curlin to get fully back. He tried last night, and they took him out precautionary. So, I think the baseball team's going to be fine. And, we saw last year, you just can't make too much of one bad series because you got to get hot at the right time. Tennessee is clearly a very good team. They're 20-0 after last weekend, but Tennessee's
a midweek game upset today by somebody.
Yeah, they lost, and they're going to go in a little slump in the SEC. So things usually work out. I think this Gators team will be in the hunt for the SEC and postseason as usual. And the softball team, you're right, they beat Texas. Last night to get a
sweep. That was a big
win. So they got to win. So there's a lot of season left in both of those sports, though.
Yeah, Allie, I know you're busy watching gymnastics and stuff.
Yes.
Gymnastics lately have been a little better the last couple of days. What have you been following?
Well, we went up to Gainesville last Friday for senior night. Florida, Kentucky, last home meet of the season. It was incredibly impressive. Gymnastics this year has been really tightly scored, which I'm sure Scott can tell you about because he's been at all of them. But in previous seasons, it was not uncommon to see at least 110 in lots of
They're
Florida.
not giving them out this year.
Yeah, they've scored it a lot tighter. So the fact that we saw 3 on senior night was pretty astounding and definitely uncommon for this year's scoring. This team is just so good, and it's crazy because they're not even fully healthy. So imagine what they would be if they really were at full strength. I think they have a really good chance to make a deep run. I think that they will do well in the SEC meet. Kind of wish the SEC meet included more teams. So the top 8 go. There's 2 flights. They'll have 4 teams and 4 teams go against each other. But you think about like Arkansas is the number 9 gymnastics team in the SEC. So they get left out of the SEC meet. But they're the number, like, I want to say 15th or 16th team overall in the country. Right. And so it's only because they're in a conference that's as deep as the SEC is that they're not participating in the conference meet. They'll get to participate in regionals. And I don't know. I found that kind of interesting, but this is it. They're so fun to watch. I think Florida does, as the mom of 4 girls, Florida does such an incredible job of making a big deal about women's sports and the non-revenue sports just in general. It's such an experience to go, and it's really cool to bring my kids. This is a sport that they're all in on right now. We stay till the bitter end. They walk down, to the first row. They take pictures. They get signatures. I watched one of my daughters hug these girls as they go by, which is so not her personality at all. And I said to her, I was like, Hayden, you were hugging them. She's like, I don't know. I was just overwhelmed. And I asked them if I could hug them, and they said yes. And it's such a cool experience, and Florida just does it right. It's really fun.
We have some people. Go ahead, Scott.
I call gymnastics the happy sport because I always joke with Jenny Rowland. I mean, I touch basically every team on campus in some way, and gymnastics is always kind of like my favorite when I show up because they're all just, it's just like hanging out with your family there, and they all get along. And Jenny does such a tremendous job in building like a culture with that program. Yeah. And I call it the happy sport.
Well, and gymnastics has a little bit of a dark past, right? If you look at some of the U.S. Olympic teams, what has gone on in other countries, athletes have not always been treated well. They have had really unorthodox and inhumane practice, just methods over the years. And so as a mom that watches their kid, I mean, my kids are in the gym 15 hours a week, and you watch how Jenny Rowland interacts with her girls, the genuine excitement and support system that they have. You can't fake that. And it is so refreshing to see in a sport with a bad history, honestly, to watch what a pure and good culture has been built at Florida.
Yeah, it's ugly stuff there back in the day. We have some very knowledgeable people. I think Dan Bond from Point South Florida run ruled A&M 14-4. Softball won 5-3 versus JU. Tawine Chisholm says Tennessee lost to East Tennessee State University. So that would give you that information. And let's see what else. Dan says, Dan Bond, who follows it very closely, says only 22 10s all season in the NCAA. 22.
And Gators had 6 of them.
Wow. Yeah.
It's wild how differently this season was scored than past seasons.
It was. Guys, great job tonight. Thank you. Appreciate it very much. You be well. We'll catch up to you next week. Enjoy the games this weekend.
All right. This is a holiday. This is exciting.
Yeah, Peek Wilbur. Don't forget her podcast, A Peek Inside the Gators, probably 2 or 3 times a week. How often are you?
And if you used to follow me on Twitter, refollow me. I had to create a brand new account because I was hacked. So it is really, I have got so many messages.
What are you on Twitter?
It's at Allie_Peek, but I had an account for a bajillion years. Somehow I got hacked by a Bitcoin bot. So now it's new.
I'm sorry. Well, anyway, we'll find you, and you do great.
Right.
Keep giving it. Scott, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. All the best to you.
All right, guys. You'll have a good night.
Good night, Scott. Good night, buddy.
Good night. Thank you. All right, folks, we're going to just play a little bit of an interview I had with Steve Spurrier today. He got in another Hall of Fame, and we pick up the phone call. He's talking about it randomly.
I guess they put it together out there. It's mostly former NFL quarterbacks: Bart Starr, Johnny Unitas, Doug Williams. But anyway, they called me up, and flew me out, and Jerry and I went out there, and so I see myself, Carson Palmer, and Marlon Briscoe. Briscoe has passed away, so he had, I think his wife or son or somebody, spoke for him. But we were the three inducted. And then they also had a high school kid from Georgia who's going to Colorado to play for Coach Prime. And then the college quarterback of the year was a kid from Army. Ran that option, triple option and all that. So he was there. But other than that, it was a nice function. We were out there a couple of nights, and flew back.
How many halls of fame is that for you, Steve?
Oh, I can't count them all right now. I know it's a bunch because so many people have a Hall of Fame. You got North Florida Hall of Fame. If we started with the state of Florida, they've got one. Tampa put me in there. Tampa Hall of Fame this past year, actually. And then the Orange Bowl, the Gator Bowl, they all have one. Capital One Bowl, I don't know if they have a Hall of Fame. Maybe not. Gator Bowl, did I say Gator Bowl? And then, of course, when you start thinking about here at Florida, well, let's see. That's just Letterman's Hall of Fame or UF Hall of Fame, so forth. But I haven't counted them all up.
Well, you don't forget the big ones.
There's like a 4 or 5 in Tennessee, and then you start ACC, SEC, and all those. Mm-hmm.
You hadn't even counted the big ones.
I'd say 35 or so.
Of course, you have the coach as a coach and a player. I don't know how many people are in the Hall of Fame of both of those as a coach and player, right?
Yep, that's true. I'm the only living guy that's in the College Hall of Fame as a player and a coach. The other 3 have passed. Bobby Dodd was in as a player and a coach. So anyway.
Bobby Dodd. Well, tell me about your night with the first-year coach. I hear it was quite a success.
Yeah, we had a good turnout. Fran, Syracuse coach. Fran, what's his last name?
Kersey?
No, Fran. God, I can't think his last name. Sharp guy, though. They went 10-3. Had a good year for Syracuse. Very good year.
Syracuse, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Dabo came. His kicker was the freshman of the year that made that 56-yard field goal to win the ACC for him. And then both Beamers came. Frank was our legend coach. And the quarterback at South Carolina, Denoris Sellers, was the freshman of the year. So they all came. And let's see who else we have there. Seems like we had one other.
It's getting to be quite an event.
Yeah, it was. It was really a nice event. And they all came, which is neat. They all get their school planes and fly in and fly out that night. So anyway, it was a good event.
It's like they get their school planes. Come on, guys, get your school plane. Let's go. Great job there by Coach Beard. Good to talk with him on the update. He'll be watching the tournaments like the rest of us. Get your Final Four ready tonight. So last night you can enter. And by the way, in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the brackets right there for Ernie.com. We encourage you to please get in there as fast as you can tonight. Join because Florida's trying to win the overall number of people participating in the brackets against with a challenge against Auburn. You have a chance to win $5,000. I filled my brackets out today. You can do it. It takes a minute. So you go in there and get your brackets. You have to register and then pick your teams. And good luck to you. Hope you do well. I'll tell you about our fine sponsors. Rinse Medical Research. They've done a terrific job for us over the years. We appreciate their loyalty and participation. If you're interested, go to WinStar.net and find out more about how you can join their clinical trials, which is what they do well, trying to get information on our health and get that information out to the people who it matters. WinStar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Well, that's a wrap on a good day. Hope your day was good. It gets better tomorrow. It's going to be a fun week. Hope all your teams win and you enjoy the tournament. That's what it's about. And how about those Florida Gators? They're making it fun, aren't they? So we'll see what happens. Tomorrow night, Orange Blue Bloods will be here with Ben Troop and the gang. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening.